In today's show, we're here live on YouTube, ready to answer your questions about the NBA, about fantasy basketball, hey, about whatever you want to chuck our way. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We're here. We're not in Paris. We're here in Australia. We're ready to answer your questions. And I am joined, of course, by Adam King. Kingy, welcome back.
Morning, Josh. Thanks for having me, as always. Bright and early, once again.
It is nice and early. So we said this before we got on air. It was a little bit hard to get up this morning. I don't even know what reason it was. You probably watched too much tennis last night, but I haven't even had my coffee this morning. I'm here, I'm sitting, and the coffee's sitting here waiting, and I haven't even had it yet, so I haven't even fully woken up from that. But we're here to answer your questions. First one, let's do it right way. Dan Barry says, do we sell low on Lamelo? And as soon as I hear those first two words, my immediate reaction is, well, no, what are you doing? But what do you do now with Lamelo?
I just hold him. I was just reading through the news, actually, from the night, that sort of thing. I mean, you never know. You never believe what a player says, but he says that his injury is not serious. And I mean, I don't think it's as bad as the first two he had. It
looked worse.
It did, but yeah, I don't know. You would have sprained your ankle multiple times, probably as well. We'll see, but I mean, no one's gonna sort of give you anything really worthwhile. So I'm just holding him, and I'm used to having him not on my roster.
That's true, especially when we don't know what the time frame is. And again, don't believe the Hornets, don't believe the player, because they are all lying all over the place. It's frustrating. I'm going to expect it's got to be at least a week. It's probably going to be 2 weeks, I'm thinking here. So we're obviously adding Dennis Smith Jr. in that situation. Daniel Chin says, I don't get why Jalen Duren is must roster. Kingy, do you agree that he's must roster? And if you do, why?
Yeah, I do. He's locked in as the starter. I think
apart from today where he's not starting.
Oh, he's not starting.
Yeah, fucking today. Idiots.
So.
Idiots.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that's Detroit. But, look, I just think, like, what he's been doing, you sort of have to view that as his flaw. Like, he started pretty rough. They had Bagley in there. Bagley's not there now. He gets your rebounds. His blocks aren't probably where we want them to be, but they'll get there. So he's still quite raw, but I think 30 minutes, 32 minutes, you've got to have him just for his rebounding, blocks, field goal percentage, that sort of thing. So
that's the thing. Like when we say must roster, and someone asked me this question in one of the shows yesterday, Josh, do you think, how confident are you that your audience knows what you mean when you say must roster? And I thought to myself, actually not that confident, because I feel like there's a lot of things that I say that get misinterpreted quite a bit. So let's go through it again. When I say must roster, like, you shouldn't sit on any waiver wires in a 12-team league. Does it mean that it absolutely is a must for your team? It means you absolutely must look at it, but he's never giving you threes. He's never giving you assists. He's not a good free throw shooter. And if that doesn't make sense on your team, it doesn't make sense on your team. But I guarantee it makes sense on one team in your league. This is a guy that might be a double-digit rebounder. And you're right, the blocks they're useless. I don't know why he can't block any shots, but he blocked tons of them in college. So I do feel that they are going to come. But he's a big rebound guy. He's a big field goal percentage guy. His scoring is okay, but they've got two really strong categories with the potential for blocks to become that third one. And I think that makes him a top 100 guy rest of season. Would that make sense on your team? I don't know. It might not, but you've at least got to look at it and go, maybe there's something here for him. But if it makes sense, it makes sense. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But it should make sense for somebody. DDD says, you guys say just hold Lamelo, but we know he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. You don't know that. I can assure you don't know that, because if you did know that, then you would be a soothsayer, a mystic. We don't know that in the slightest. So it's all well and good to say, I'm going to make this move because I know this is going to happen. You don't know it. I can assure you don't know it. And making moves because you are jaded because he's been out twice already with a sprained ankle, which cost him 3 weeks each time, doesn't mean that you know he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks this time. And even if you trade him, what are you getting? A top 70 player back? You're getting back Mikal Bridges? Are you getting back Andrew Wiggins? Like, and the point of that is, I don't know. So yeah, that's why we say just hold. Anyway, you guys can do whatever you want with the players on your team. We got the news just as we went to air here, Kingy, that Mitchy Robinson has a thumb fracture. It's going to be at least 3 weeks. Thumb fractures are usually, like, bang on, give it 4 weeks, like almost any thumb fracture, 4 weeks. All right, that's so Revo in 3 weeks. I expect back in 4 weeks. So that's where we're at with Mitch. Hartenstein or Sims is the ad. I know my answer. What do you think?
Sadly, I think my answer is the same as yours. It's Sims. It would have been Hartenstein, but he just hasn't looked good. That yesterday they went with Sims, so I think that gives us a good indication. Yeah, I would go with Sims.
I think it's probably going to be no one, to be honest. I think it'll be 23 minutes for Sims. It'll be 20 minutes for Hartenstein. Hartenstein might start or Sims might start. But yeah, Hartenstein's looked bad since about week 3 this season. Something changed, and there was that report that he was dealing with some sort of injury, but the system doesn't fit him. He's not playing well at all. He can't shoot, or he can't do anything anymore. He's completely a different player to what he was last season. So if I had to pick one, it would be Sims. But I don't think I'm rushing to go and add him at this point. But I think he would be the guy. Here's a really interesting question. Miles says Duran's not starting because of passport issue, right? No, because if he's there, he's there. Like, you don't need a passport to be able to start. Maybe because he arrived a little bit late. I think maybe it's because he's returning from an ankle injury that cost him a week and a half that he's coming off the bench. I don't think it's got anything to do with the passport issue. If he's available to play, he's available to play. But here's an interesting question. Shapaz says, would you rather stash Isaiah Jackson waiting for a Turner trade or Nance waiting for the return of Zion?
I don't think Turner's getting traded. So
I don't think he is either.
So, I mean, if you had to pick for one of those reasons, I'd go the Zion reason, because I don't think the Turner reason will actually happen.
All right, that's interesting, because I don't think the Turner thing will happen either, but I would still stash Isaiah Jackson. And the reason I would still do that is because, while we're waiting for Zion to return and Larry Nance is putting up 2, 2, and 2, no one is going to add him. There is no urgency in adding him at all. And even his upside is maybe top 90 if he gets back and plays 25 minutes alongside Zion. If, on a 5 to 10% chance that Miles Turner is traded, Isaiah Jackson starts, this is a top 40 player. Even in top 7, even in him playing 17 minutes now, his production is higher than what Nance is going to be. I think if he maintains that backup role, which we don't know, I think he can actually outproduce Nance now, and then his upside is significantly higher, even though the likelihood of getting there is lower. And we're not quite in the early season stages of like take swings. We're starting to solidify and consolidate our teams. But I still think if you can just add a top 50 player heading into fantasy playoffs, it's rather than like, oh, maybe Zion comes back and Nance is top 90. I still prefer to go that upside route, even if I understand that the likelihood of that coming to fruition is pretty low, as it is with all sort of trades. Well, let's talk trade deadline just in general, because I get asked it a lot. And I've given my answer a million times, Kingy, but I want to hear your answer. I'm just putting Nathaniel's question up here about Mark Williams. Who are you stashing before the trade deadline? And people will bring out your 30 names on a list, and these are the guys. Like, to me, there are 3 names. I could extend it to 4 of guys that I would consider stashing 3 weeks out from the NBA. Is it even 3 weeks anymore? It might even be 2 weeks from the NBA trade deadline. There are 3 guys, maybe 4, that I'd extend it out to, but you may have seen my list already. Who would you have on that list?
No, I haven't seen your list. Who would I have on the list? God, I haven't even thought about stashing yet.
Let me. You get back to that and have a think of it. Actually, we'll come back to that, because I'll give you time now, because I'm going to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs is something that a small business or a hiring manager needs to know. You need success in 2023, and that depends on the team members that you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. You can identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Trade deadline stashes, Kingy. Have you got something for us?
Yeah, so a little bit of a think. Mark Williams is probably one. He'd probably be a guy. I think Tari Eason is probably something that people are going to say, well, do you stash him? I'm probably not. Even though like Eric Gordon might go, I mean, Kenyon Martin could go. I still have no confidence that they're going to give Eason more than 20, 22 minutes. And we saw it last year with Şengün. We were stashing, and it never happened. They just kept giving him backup minutes. And yeah, so I was sort of thinking of who could be traded, what significant players. Pirtle is someone I think could go. So maybe Zach Collins in San Antonio. He's been decent enough in 20 minutes. If he can get 28 minutes, 30 minutes, I think he's probably someone worth stashing. So there's a couple of names.
They're the names that I've got, really. I've got three names on the list. It's Isaiah Jackson, it's Mark Williams, and it's Zach Collins. And I would throw KJ Martin in as the fourth one because I think if Eric Gordon is traded, it looks like Martin would start and play 30 minutes, and that's probably good enough, right? But that I'm not certain about because they could put Tate in there. They won't put Eason in there. They won't put Eason in there. They will put Martin in there, or they will put Tate in there. So they're the three. And the reason I have that is you might have other options to go, well, Josh, maybe Gary Trent is traded, or maybe we've heard about Jalen McDaniels getting traded, and all those things are true. But my theory here is this, Kingy, is those three teams, right? If the Pacers trade Miles Turner, I doubt they're bringing another centre back when they've got Jalen Smith and Isaiah Jackson. The Hornets, if they trade Mason Plumlee or decide to bench Mason Plumlee, they won't. They've got Nick Richards and Mark Williams, the guys that they want to invest in. So they'll probably play those guys. And then in San Antonio, if they trade Pirtle, it won't be to get another centre back. Centre is such a weirdly replaceable position around the NBA that you're not trading for these other guys to take over from the players who you've already sort of got in your system. If you trade a wing away, a 2, a 3, a 4, all right, let's throw an example. Let's say Jalen McDaniels gets traded from Charlotte. Then his 23 minutes a night could get replaced by Gordon Hayward or Kelly Oubre, or the minutes he plays at the 4 go to PJ Washington or JT Thor, or Dennis Smith plays at the 2, or Bryce McGowan's getting into the rotation. All those positions are so interchangeable that if someone gets traded or someone comes back in that position as well who takes those minutes, or Cody Martin, another one, that all these other guys might get an extra 2 to 3 minutes, or a player getting 0 minutes now might play 14 minutes, and it has zero impact in fantasy. It's very rare to see a player who's a shooting guard or a small forward get traded away and someone just moves straight in and plays 35 minutes that wasn't already getting 28 minutes. It's just so rare to see that. And then trying to predict that stuff, well, it's all a hit or miss stuff. So the ones, again, we're drawn to the same ones. We go, we've heard this stuff with these guys. There's reasons why these players might get traded, unrestricted free agents, centers who are okay, and teams with young, promising guys behind them. That's the reason I look at that. It's why so often when someone gets injured in a lot of cases, that the easy one for one replacement's a point guard and center, whereas everything else gets a little bit messy. And I think that's my same approach to the trade deadline. And again, like you said, I don't think Miles Turner's getting traded. Like everyone we think's getting traded, none of them will. Like, not that's hyperbole, but they just won't. Like we do this every year, and we have all these names, and they get reported, and nothing happens. And then you'll get Corey Joseph traded for Delano Banton, and we go, fuck, didn't see that coming. And that's how it will go. And there'll be some other random one, like Bradley Beal's now been traded for a package of John Wall and Norman Powell. Or so, who knows? Like something random like that'll happen that we've never heard of and no one's touched on, and we have to react in the moment. So I think we've got a similar thought process for it. All right, JP Lawrence. Jalen Williams used to be a pick and roll passing fiend in college. Could he get more assists as the year goes on?
we've seen flashes. I think he's had a double-digit assist game this season.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So we have seen flashes. It's going to be hard because he's playing alongside Shea and Giddy, who are two. I mean, they don't live by the pass, but they both can easily get sort of 8 to 10 assists a game. So I think it's going to be tough as a consistent thing. We might see it in a couple of games if someone's injured or someone's rested, whatever. Long term, I think potentially, depending where he ends up and what his role looks like. But this year, probably I don't see a lot of opportunity for that happening. Given the Thunder look like they're
good.
Well, contending might not be the right word, but they're not resting.
Yeah, look, it's his role. Like, can he do it? I've got no doubt at all that he can do it, but he's a power forward on this team, really. Like, he's there to be a connector. He's there to be a solid defender who scores and dunks and gets into the lane and cuts. He's got to work on his three-point shooting. So can he do it? Sure. Is it likely to happen? Absolutely not. That would be my guess. And Flav, I think this is an inch. You just listened to me talk about this, and then you threw out a question why it's impossible to know. Like, who joins the rotation on the Raptors if Gary Trent and Van Vliet are traded? They're not getting traded for dust, right? There could be look, if they trade away those guys, they have not a guard on this roster that's not named Malachi Flynn. Like, that's it. There's no guards on this roster. So if they traded those players away, then someone who joined the rotation would be someone who's not on this roster. And it would be someone who they get back into trade. Why? And that's why, like, trying to make these decisions for things that probably don't happen, these guys don't get traded. And you are going to be wrong 9 times out of 10 trying to say, I'm going to stash Delano Banton in case this happens. It's just not likely to be the case because you don't know who's coming back. It's why, again, there's just so many errors that get made in these sort of deals. When you're trying to predict a deal, it's why I don't try to get too deep into it because it doesn't pay off. The energy's not worth it. And I've actually spent too much energy in this.
Nick Nurse might run a 4-man rotation.
He'll just run. He'll put Precious Achura at point guard. We'll see how that goes. All right, so look, again, this goes back to something we talked about earlier, but it is worth discussing. That Chi-Town dude says, do you hold Giannis and hope for the best? I don't know what your other option is. Like, I know it's been really frustrating with Giannis and his knee. Like, it's clearly frustrating. But what else? What can you do? Trade him away for, like, Julius Randle? Like, what do you, no, that's maybe you wouldn't even get that back into trade with how his field goal percentage has been, and now he's dealing with this knee problem. Like, what else can you do?
Yeah, not much. I mean, I don't have him, so from a personal standpoint, I don't have to make that decision. But yeah, I agreed. I don't think. Yeah, you won't be able to trade him and get anything close to value back. So I'd be just sitting and hoping that he plays.
It's human nature, right? To have someone who's struggling and injured and go, man, this guy's really struggling. It must be time for me to trade him away. But like, think about it. Like, you're doing that, and the other person's going to be like, I know he's been shit, mate. Like, he's been really bad, and he's currently injured. Why would I give you anything good for it? You're obviously clearly frustrated and ready to move on. This is prime time for me to swoop in on a deal. Like, Giannis was picked 3 and Luka was picked 4, so how about we just do a straight swap? Like, no, my guy, that's just not going to happen. How about you give me Giannis and then your next best player and your next best player and your next best player, then we'll consider it. That's where the value sits at the moment with someone who's missed like 4 straight games with a knee injury and for some reason can't hit field goals anymore. All that stuff is way off. So, like, while the human nature is to go, oh, he's struggling, I must trade him, it's actually the 100% worst decision that you could make in a situation like that. It just isn't going to work out well for you, I wouldn't have thought. Today's episode is also brought to you by the legends over at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want something that's jam-packed full of sugar or calories, you want to get Built Bar because it's high in protein. We know that protein is really good for you. It's good for building those muscles, keeping you full, helping you stay lean while getting a treat that is low in calories. 130 calories in these bars. 17 grams of protein. It's a fantastic combination. And their secret, it's covered in 100% real chocolate. Now, I've been telling you guys about Built Bar for ages. Hey, you can go to Built.com and you can order your bars. And it's so simple. But now, you can just stroll into a Walmart. You can walk in there like that Vince McMahon gif with his arms swinging and go, guys, send me to the Built Bar. So you can just go straight to the pharmacy department and they've got them. They're lining them up. It's like a full gondola end. All 4-bar boxes in either the cookies and cream flavor, the double chocolate, or the coconut puffs. And you've only got so many boxes you can hold in your hands, but that's why you get a trolley. Load it all up, take it down to the front, and then on your way, you go, man, I forgot, I can get 13-bar boxes at Sam's Club. So you go to Sam's Club and you find their boxes, brownie batter or churro flavor. All these flavors directly off the shelf. So go to Built.com or go to Walmart or go to Sam's Club and get yourself some Built Bars. Built Bar is built different. Back to questions. All right, I'm just going to try and get a quick question in. Do we drop Brandon Ingram? No. Walker Kessler or Evan Mobley rest of season in a 10-team category league? That is an interesting question.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I would Mobley's probably a little safer, but it would just in terms of we know his role, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe Kessler.
I think it is.
Kessler. Look, though, I was listening to, I don't know what it was. It was a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about Rookie of the Year and that sort of thing. Kessler wasn't even mentioned.
It's ridiculous. I think about 4 weeks ago, I had him on my all-rookie first team. I haven't redone it since, but he'd have to be on that list. Like, I think he's been more impactful than, like, I'm sure they had Keegan Murray on that team, didn't they?
Yep.
In that list, yeah. Like,
in the list, yeah.
I think he's been more impactful than Keegan Murray, like, pretty clearly. Look, the thing with Mobley is I think Mobley's a significantly better real-life player. Like, I don't think there's any debate about that. His defense has been unbelievable, but the ability to ramp up into fantasy production hasn't been quite as high as what Kessler's has been. And Mobley also has a significant punt free throw issue. Not that Kessler's a great shooter, but Mobley has a significant problem with that. Now, I guess if you take that into consideration, they get a little bit closer. And you're right, the role of Mobley, where he's going to play 35 minutes a night, is secure. And we still, like, while we feel pretty confident, Kingy, that Kessler's going to maintain the starting job over Jared Vanderbilt, and he'll play 28 minutes a night or 27 minutes a night, we don't know that for sure. And there are a lot of people, and this could be wrong. We're trying to use a lot of logic with stuff, and coaches don't always run this way. But, like, we're seeing Kessler play 29 minutes a night and Vanderbilt plays 17 minutes a night. And there are a lot of people go, but yeah, what about when Kelly Olynyk returns? Don't you think that would mean Vanderbilt gets, would be turned into a minute split? Like, if Vanderbilt can't get minutes now when Olynyk's out, I don't see how he's getting more when Olynyk returns. So I just think that they'll be Olynyk and Kessler playing 28 minutes a night each, and Vanderbilt gets 17 or whatever it is coming off the bench. Maybe it moves down to Kessler 25, but I think he's been significantly better than Vando has been this season, and it would feel pretty crazy to me if he lost that starting spot.
Yeah, I think it was sort of odd. Like, Vando was starting, and then when Olynyk went out, they moved him to the bench, and then when Olynyk came back, they moved Vando back into the starting lineup. So we have seen some chopping and changing, but I think moving forward, I think when Olynyk does come back, surely they're just going to go, look, we've got to roll with Kessler here as the starter. So.
What happened last time? Olynyk is, from my memory, Olynyk went down and they moved Kessler straight in. And then they moved him back to the bench before Olynyk returned and moved Malik Beasley and went with Vanderbilt and Mark. Oh, actually, no. Yeah, and moved Vanderbilt and Markkanen. So Kessler didn't start all of those games when Olynyk was out the first time. I think he started the first one, and then he was sort of struggling and playing like 15, 16 minutes a night. But it seems a very different Walker Kessler now than what it was then. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone can check that. For me. All right. Let's go through this. How worried am I about the nature of Anthony Davis's injury and his return?
Well, I think, he didn't have to have surgery. I think they're looking at him coming back sort of in a week-ish before the All-Star break, I think is what the latest sort of report was. So I think, and All-Star break is what, the 15th or something of February. So we're looking at, 3 weeks. So he'll be back in, maybe 2 weeks then. But yeah, look, it's always stress injury. It's always a concerning phrase, but I think if he had to have surgery, he would have had it. So if he didn't have to have it, they're managing it. Supposedly he's pain-free now, so just starting to ramp up. So look, you're always worried about it, but I'm pretty confident that he'll be back and he'll be good.
My worry is there's some like bone spurry type things in there, and if that flares up again, it could lead to surgery to get rid of those, because that's what they said. There was some bone spur stuff in there, but like, am I like super panicked? Well, I think I'm always going to be super panicked about a foot injury with Anthony Davis in general, but no more than say usual. I'm just still expecting him back in the start of February at some point before the All-Star break, and yeah, we ride with it from there, but I'm never going to feel good about it. All right, here's a question I thought we would have got Flav, I'm 100% sure you're taking the piss with that question, so I don't even think I'm going to answer it. But Next Level DJs says, is Thomas Bryant a drop candidate now? I need a spot to activate Cam Johnson. My other drops are Najee, Beef Stew, or Naz Reid. First of all, who would you drop out of that group? Bryant, Najee, Isaiah Stewart, or Naz Reid?
Gobert's questionable again today, so maybe it's Reid. Oh no, look, it's probably, I don't know. I think you can make a case for all of them. It might be Bryant, maybe Stewart. Najee, I'd probably be holding until Zion's back. Gobert should miss at least a week to 2 weeks if common sense prevails. So I'd be holding Reid. So maybe it is Stewart or Bryant.
Stewart's had every opportunity all season and has never been remotely good enough to be considered anything more than the worst player on a 12-team league roster. So using that logic, then it's hard to consider him a hold. But you're right. Like if Gobert plays today, then there's no reason to hold on to Naz Reid really at all, outside of to see whether Gobert makes it through the game. Bryant is still starting, even though he's played like 20 minutes in 4 consecutive games and looks terrible. But at least we know there's a chance of him playing 24 or 25 a night. If Gobert is back, there's no chance of that for Naz. Like it's just not going to happen. So I'd probably wait on Cam Johnson. I wouldn't activate him today. And then that means you get to see Cam Johnson in action. You get to see Gobert, whether he plays, and then you can make an easy decision from there. Because if Gobert's back, Reid's the drop. If Gobert is still out and we hear a little bit more, then maybe Reid still is the drop, because maybe it's not a long-term thing, but guys like Stewart or Bryant aren't guys you need to particularly feel excited about holding on to.
Yeah, I've got Cam Johnson. I'm not activating him today.
I wouldn't. I think he'll play like 20 minutes, 21 minutes, really.
Yeah.
Philip Sum says, not sure my question got through. Philip, there's just a lot of questions, mate, so I don't always get to all of them, but here's your question now. Jaren Jackson's only clocking high 20s, so what do you expect him to achieve with around 33 to 36 minutes? Top 10 in 9-cap? Well, I don't expect him to ever play 33 to 36 minutes. Top 10, maybe, but I just don't expect him to ever do that. So it's almost like, could he be the number one player if he played 50 minutes a night? I guess so. And I know that's being hyperbolic. I just don't ever think he's going to play those sort of minutes. With the way that he plays, sometimes there's foul trouble. They just don't need that from him. He'll get the occasional game like that, and often it's not a linear process where you go from 28 to 33, therefore you've just added 20% production on. Like the more minutes you play, things tend to ramp down a little bit in terms of per minute production. But he's not far off top 10 anyway. Like what is he, 18th or 20th or something like that? So I guess the question I ask you is, will he ever play those minutes, Kingy?
No, not 33 to 36. I think he's probably topped out at about 30, 31 this year. And the way their rotation works, they're deep. They don't need to play him that many. He's kept his fouls in check this season, which has been really nice. So I would say, and I mean, look, they win, they blow teams out, so that impacts his overall, his sort of average minutes as well.
That's why Morant plays like 32 minutes a night or 33 minutes a night.
Yeah. So, look, I mean, in terms of what he could do in those minutes, maybe, but I think in the player ranks here, he's the 9th ranked player in 9-cap leagues already. You
want some breaking news? Christian Wood has a fracture of his thumb. He'll be reevaluated next week.
Okay.
So we're not adding Dwight Powell. Like there's no ad there, I don't think. Like it's just going to be random production to a million other players. Like Powell will have occasional stream value, but that's really it.
I hope they play more Josh Green. That'd be nice.
Yeah, but it would be nice. I just don't think they will, because literally who's going to play center?
Yeah, that's one of those instances where there probably isn't a direct pickup. Yeah, I mean, Powell might play 24, 26 minutes, but I don't think that's enough to be a 12-team.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like it will increase. Like he'll probably play 27 minutes a night or something. Powell, like he might have to do that. But what that might give him, like 8 points, 8 rebounds, the value he will have will come on like 64% shooting and maybe 1.2 steals. So there might be a little bit there, but it wouldn't be rushing to go, I gotta go grab him. Like I guess the question is, do you look at Dwight Powell or do you add Sims? Like, or do you just go, whatever?
Yeah, I'd probably lean Sims slightly.
I think I would too. Better block numbers.
Yeah.
Let's do one more question before we get out of here. All right. Well, let's bring it full circle. Talk Mitch Robinson. Ryan says, Do you drop Mitchell Robinson for streamers? He's already got Zion and AD in my IR slot, so we're talking 4 weeks here, I reckon, for Mitch Robinson. I think, to me, Kingy, this is where are you in the standings? If you're 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, then yes. Like, yeah, you don't really have a choice. It's very hard to compete with one guy or 1-0 on your active roster spot. And let's be honest, in those 4 weeks, someone else is going to get injured. So you're going to be left with 2-3 zeros in that spot, and you've got no chance of competing there. And that might take you literally out of the playoffs because your time to recover is 3 weeks before the playoffs start. If you're first, who cares? People really, they value that bye week so much. Your guys don't actually need to rest in fantasy. People love it because it lets me push 1 week further, but your players don't need to rest. That advantage isn't necessarily there. It's still like you might rest, and then the week where you play, when all your players get hurt, and that didn't actually mean anything. So I don't actually care if I move from 1st down to 4th in the standings. So I think the answer is yes to drop on Mitch Rob. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll probably lean that way as well. Again, it does depend on where you're sitting in the standings. If you can afford to just have him there, putting up nothing for, as you said, a month potentially, which takes us to post All-Star break. Fantasy playoffs should start a couple of weeks after the All-Star break, I think. If depending on your league settings, of course. So he'd be handy to have there for the playoffs. So if you can afford it, then hold him. But yeah, if you're not sort of 1st or 2nd or 3rd, I'd probably just drop him.
I'm going to sneak one last question in here for you, Kingy. Do you care about getting a 1st round bye in playoffs for fantasy?
No.
Not
really.
I don't either.
No.
I don't. It's all well and good to say, look at me, I'm sitting first and I'm sitting back. And I guess the advantage is you've got a week full of ads where you can make stashes on guys. That is an advantage. I understand that. We go, look, I don't have to actually play this week, so I can churn through the bottom of my roster. This guy's injured this week and someone had to drop him. I can wait and he comes back next week. That's an advantage. But otherwise, I don't think that it's worth... really, like, I've got a super push to this, so to move from 3rd seed to the 2 seed, and in doing so, I had to drop someone who was going to be more valuable for me in the playoffs. I don't think that is, I don't even think that is worth it, really. So, Kingy, I reckon that will end things for us here today. I appreciate you coming on again and answering questions with me and with the folks here. Tell people what you've got going on.
Just over at Twitter, really, at AdamKing91. I've been talking about it. We have got the new podcast coming. We're just, B-Dub is flat out with his stuff, with his young human in the family. So he's got other things to do. So once that's up and running, and we may have a new tool coming out on the website as well. We've been talking with Matt Lawson about it's sort of a ranking kind of tool. Very early process at the moment, but FBIbasketball.com is where that will be if and when it's up and running.
Go and check out Kingy and all the stuff the guys do over at FBI Basketball. Thanks for coming on again, Adam, and answering questions with me.
No worries. Thank you. I'll let you go and have your coffee, and I will go to work.
All right. Peace out, mate. Guys, thanks for being a part of the show. And don't forget, while you're here, to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up, and leave your comments down below. But you can also find the audio version of this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. If you are here on YouTube, thumb it up and leave those comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.